Whew. Okay. What's up, everybody? We're gonna be talking about the Appalachian Trail today, because what else would I talk about? That's basically all I talk about. And 4 years later, we're still reminiscing, milking this through hike I did for all it's worth. But no, we're gonna be talking about the 3 toughest states for me personally on my 2018 Appalachian Trail hike. Am I in focus? Yes, I am. Off to a great start here. This is a very personal subject. Not everyone is gonna struggle in the exact same spots on the Appalachian Trail. That being said, I do think that particularly the first and the last state that I'm gonna share with you guys probably are states that a lot of people struggle in. Not everybody, but I think it's probably more common for people to struggle in these states. Basically, I'm just undercutting everything I just said about this being personal, but we don't really make sense on this channel a lot, as you guys know. And if you also don't make sense, which doesn't make any sense, you should hit the subscribe button. I've been teasing some upcoming announcements that are gonna be made very soon in a lot of videos now. I promise you they're coming. You gotta subscribe so you can hear what that is relating to my very big and ambitious hiking plans this year. So hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, hit any other buttons you see on the screen. Except for the dislike button. You can't even see it anymore anyway, so it doesn't matter. The first state that I struggled in, that kind of broke me, that made me kind of want to quit a little bit on the Appalachian Trail, was Georgia, the very first state. That's right. And I will say that throughout my through hike, I didn't really ever think about quitting. Maybe that will piss you off depending on what I said in the title of this video. There wasn't really any circumstances where I actually was in my head was like, okay, I might actually quit this trail. But the closest I ever came to that was definitely in Georgia at the very start of my through hike. I was absolutely just smacked in the face with reality when I started. When I was going up the approach trail, so I wasn't even on the Appalachian Trail yet, the very first day of my hike, wow, whew, I was overwhelmed, and to say that is an understatement. I just graduated college like a few days before. I went from living on a campus with all my friends to all of a sudden just being thrown into the middle of the woods. And I was a pretty experienced backpacker at this time too. It's not like I didn't know what I was doing. And I had also been planning on doing this through hike for a long time. So it shouldn't have been super shocking to me, but it was. And I was like questioning it all of a sudden. And so I kind of decided in my head, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna quit right now. I'm not just gonna like make a rash decision and just like drop out. I was like, I'm just gonna roll with this for like a couple weeks, see how it's going. And then hopefully my perspective will change and I will be better off and I'll want to keep going. And fortunately, that is what ended up happening. And so basically right off the bat, Georgia almost broke me. And so I decided, and I've talked about this before, but a really good piece of advice I would give to anybody doing any through hike, at the very start, you're probably gonna feel intimidated like this unless you're a badass. If you're feeling overwhelmed at the amount of miles you have to do, at the, you know, like how hard it's gonna be to hike for months and months and months on end, try not to think about it. But that piece of advice doesn't really make sense either, because you're like, Kyle, how the hell am I not supposed to think about it? It's like my entire life right now. Like, what am I, like, that doesn't make any sense. So not only should you try not to think about it, but instead redirect your thoughts towards how far you've gone. Don't think about how far you have left. At first, obviously, like if you haven't gone that many miles yet, that might seem insignificant, but I promise you, as you get your bearings, as you keep going, as the number of miles you've hiked increases, you are gonna start to feel more satisfaction in how far you've gone, and hopefully you can flip that switch in your head and not focus on how many miles you have left to go. I'm actually gonna come back to this point when I'm talking about the third state that almost broke me. The last thing I'll just say is in my AWOL guidebook, it shows you the mile marker for how far you've gone and how far you have left for every single point along the trail. And so it was very easy at the beginning for me to look at the number of how many miles I had left and just be like, holy shit, dude, I don't know if I can do it. And so I basically had to train my brain to block out that entire like wall of text that shows you how many miles you have left to go. I'll put it up on the screen so you know what I'm talking about. I had to train my brain to just block that out. And I did a pretty good job up until the end of the trail, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I get into the second state that almost broke me on my Appalachian Trail through hike, I gotta give a huge, that was so weird, huge shout out to today's sponsor. You know them, you love them, Drink Element, guys, on the Appalachian Trail. I was sweating so much. I've talked about this repeatedly. I wish I had some of Drink Element's electrolyte drink mix to keep my electrolytes replenished, to keep me hydrated. I would have felt so much better. And this isn't just some sponsor plug where I'm trying to get you to buy some stuff and just like dip. No, if you go to the link on the screen right now, drinklmnt.com/KyleHatesHiking, you can actually sign up and get a free sample pack of 8 different flavors from Drink Element. This is so sick that I'm taking the sunglasses off, guys. You do have to pay the cost of shipping. It's like $5 if you're in the US. It's wicked cheap and it's a wicked good deal. You're gonna get 8 different flavors, like I said. You're gonna get their standard flavors like raspberry salt, citrus salt, which is my personal favorite. You're also gonna get some crazy flavors like mango chili. Lemon habanero is another crazy awesome flavor that you're gonna get in this sample pack. What kind of companies make like these awesome flavors? Everyone always plays it safe. All these other electrolyte drink mix companies, they just have like the basics and stuff. Drink Element, they step outside of the box. They push the boundaries of what's possible with electrolyte drink mixes, and they're all really, really good. I gotta tell you guys, chocolate salt, that's another one. One more time, drinklmnt.com/KyleHatesHiking. Also, these drink mixes are like pretty good for you. They're not full of added sugar and like a bunch of crap that you don't want in your body. They just have a good taste, and they got the electrolytes that you need to stay hydrated. I'm telling you, I really could have used these in my next state that I'm gonna talk about here. So free sample pack, Drink Element's been hooking it up. Thank you guys very, very much for your continued support. So this next state that almost broke me on my Appalachian Trail, through hike was Virginia. And it's not for the reason that a lot of people talk about. So the Virginia Blues is something everybody talks about on the Appalachian Trail, which basically means Virginia is the longest state. And so through hikers who are used to crossing state lines pretty frequently on the Appalachian Trail get in this funk when they're in Virginia. It's just such a long state. You don't feel like you're making as much progress. At that point, if you're going northbound, you're like a good way into your through hike, but you're still not even halfway yet. So it's a very mentally challenging state for a lot of people. But for me, the Virginia Blues thing wasn't really what almost broke me. It really wasn't what gave me a lot of trouble. I enjoyed Virginia. Like, I was very excited to be done with it once I finally got out of it. But for the most part, I was never thinking like, oh my God, like I just hate Virginia. Like, I need this to end. Like, instead, what almost broke me was the heat. I started really late, as a lot of you guys know. May 14th was my start date going northbound on the Appalachian Trail. So like, no shit, it's gonna be hot, Kyle. You're hiking through the South in the middle of the summer. So it was July when I was in Virginia. Basically all of July is when I was hiking through there. Yeah, it was hot. Clearly where I live here in Vermont, it doesn't get that hot. I was not used to the heat and humidity that I was getting hit with in Virginia. And again, I never really thought about quitting, but there was a solid like 2-week stretch right in the middle of Virginia too, where I was like, damn, like I was sweating so much. Again, I could have used some of that Drink Element electrolyte mix. I was chafing, like you don't even want to know like the details about how I was shaving. Like, oh man, it was bad. There was one time I was actually getting picked up by a friend of mine in a few hours. I only had like a couple miles to hike before I got to the road where he was picking me up. So like I knew I was really close, but I was chafing so bad that I could not take it anymore. I couldn't even do those last few miles. So I had to stop. I took off my hiking shorts and I put on my long underwear and hiked the last few miles in that, because my shorts were just so full of sweat and I was just chafing so bad. Yeah, that sucked. I wish I had like a solid piece of advice or like a happy ending to this part of the story where I could be like, I was like having this problem with the heat and so I changed this or I did this and then all of a sudden like the problem went away. I don't. I suffered through just about all of Virginia, actually a lot of other states like north of Virginia too. The heat and humidity really got to me. I bought a new pair of shorts at one point to try to stop the chafing. It worked for a while, but it didn't really work that well. I tried everything. I tried tape. It just came off my body because I sweat so much. I tried like the gels, like the Body Glide stuff. That didn't do shit. At some point I just, what did I do? I don't know what I did. I kind of had to come to terms with it. Like I said, it never made me want to quit, but eventually I had to just be like, all right, Kyle, you just got to suck it up, because I knew eventually it was going to cool down, obviously, and it did. And getting used to it when I was going through Virginia, really, it pushed me to my limits. And the last state, what is this? That almost broke me on my Appalachian Trail through hike was Maine. Now you might think, Kyle, Maine is the last state. Like once you make it to Maine, like you're so close, like you're almost there. Why did Maine almost break you? I definitely didn't think about quitting when I was in Maine, but Maine was by far the most challenging, maybe physically, but definitely mentally state on the entire Appalachian Trail for me. Hands down, it was not even close. And it really caught me off guard because, again, going back to what I just said there, you think like, oh, the trail is like Georgia to Maine. So like once you make it to Maine, you're almost there. Like, come on, just suck it up for a few more weeks. and like you're good. I did not feel like that at all. Going back to the point I made at the beginning of this video about Georgia and how I was like really intimidated by how many miles I had to hike and how I kind of had to get over that, right? I had to force myself to not pay attention to that. Once I got out of Georgia and maybe a little bit into North Carolina, I actually was very good about not focusing or even thinking about how many miles I had left to go. I did think about finishing because, like, you know, you picture yourself up on Katahdin, but that's a little bit different. That's not really what I'm talking about here. I did a really good job of not focusing on how many miles I had left to go, and that lasted literally up until the day that I crossed into Maine. I don't know what it was. I think just psychologically, knowing I was in the final state, all of a sudden, I just could not resist thinking about how far I had. And at that point, I only had about 280 miles. So you might think, oh, you know, like you hiked nearly 2,000 miles to get there. What's another 280? But on the flip side, when you've hiked 2,000 miles, you know exactly how much it takes to hike another 280 miles. And so I knew that it was gonna be hard. I knew it was gonna be short in the grand scheme of things, only a few more weeks, but like, damn, like I knew it was gonna be hard. And just the fact that I finally crossed into the final state, I guess the flip just switched. No, the switch just flipped, whatever, you know what I'm saying, in my head. I finally could not resist thinking about like how far I had left to go. And honestly, the 280 miles I had to hike through Maine were just as intimidating for me at the time as the 2,190 miles that I had to think about when I first started. And that sounds crazy. I've never really said that out loud before or said it in that exact way. And as I say it, it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. Like, that's how I felt. Fortunately, there was no way that I was gonna let myself quit at this point. So I just sucked it up. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have the best time in Maine. It was amazing when I finished, and I definitely had like some really good like times sprinkled throughout Maine, but as a whole, guys, it was tough. It was a grind. And I think going forward, when I do long through hikes, and this is a piece of advice I would give to anybody out there, I'm really gonna try even harder, especially at the end of the hike, to not get focused on finishing and to still try to be present, and I hate wind, and to try to stay as present and grounded in the moment, even if you're so close to being done, as you possibly can. I hate to say it, but when I look back on Maine, I really wish that I had enjoyed it more, because it is one of the most beautiful states, if not the most beautiful state on the entire Appalachian Trail. Like the 100-mile wilderness, dude, that shit is so sick. Like I said, I had some good times there, but overall, I was just thinking about the end at that point, and I don't think that I really enjoyed it and really like absorbed it as much as I would have if I hadn't flipped that switch in my head when I got to the Maine border and just allowed myself to think about the end, basically. So those were, but what am I talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about. How many videos have I done? I still can't talk. Those were the three most challenging states for me on the Appalachian Trail. The 3 states that almost broke me, the 3 states that maybe made me want to quit a little bit. I don't know what title I'm going with yet. And so if you guys are setting out on the Appalachian Trail this year, best of luck. Hopefully this helps a little bit. I've got 1,500 other videos on the Appalachian Trail. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, dude. Go check out some of those old videos. And once again, stay tuned, guys. Very exciting announcement coming very, very soon about another very long through hike happening very, very soon. Yeah.